everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Brooke and thank you for tuning in. This video is going to be about my testimony dealing with my pregnancy and hyperemesis gravidarum and basically losing everything and trying to piece my life back together. So if you're interested, keep watching and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. So when I was 21, I got pregnant with my first daughter. Well, technically not my first. I had miscarriages before that, but this was my first live birth. And at the time, me and her father were dating. We were young, crazy, living life in the city, and it just was not. I wasn't making very wise decisions. I'll say it like that. So during my pregnancy, I had something called hyperemesis gravidarum, which is severe morning sickness. Usually, when I was reading up about it, most cases aren't as severe as my case was. When I had hyperemesis gravidarum, it was almost like if my doctor at the time would not have stepped in, I probably would not have made it through my pregnancy. Either me or my daughter would have lost our lives, if not both of us, for my doctor having been there. So I believe I maybe went like 3 to 6 weeks being perfectly fine. And the story that I was told was I went to work one night, threw up, and everything after that just went downhill from there. At the time of my pregnancy, I had been waitressing, so I was on my feet constantly, and I was just always moving. So after that last night of work, I can't remember pretty much anything of what happened. I know at the time, me and my boyfriend, we had our own place. We basically lost everything, like every bit of furniture. I still have no idea where my car is. Of course, lost my job, ended up dropping out of school because it was so much going on. And at the time, my mind, it was almost like I was absent. Like I was still alive, of course, obviously, but like my mind was just absent. And I didn't realize it because every day to me was like the same exact, especially before like I was in the hospital, everything was the same. I could not keep any food down, no water, even sometimes like my own saliva, like everything came back up. I was told that I lost so much weight to where like you could see the bone structure in my face, which naturally I have a fat face, which I enjoy because I feel like, it's just normal for me to see fat cheeks on my face, not just my bones popping out. So you can see my bone structure. I didn't have like any of like my arm jiggle. I didn't have any of that. Like I was just bones. So I ended up being in the hospital for what I want to say was 3 months. During that time, there was constant like fetal monitoring, constantly like on bed rest. I was not allowed to get up. I know like hospitals have different codes, and they're usually like on your socks or like on your IV stand. I had to wear like yellow socks up until a certain point. I was a fall risk, and then of course I was pregnant, so it was just a lot of risk at one time. So I was in the hospital for 3 months, and I went straight from the hospital to an inpatient rehab facility. While I was in the inpatient rehab facility, I had to learn how to basically do life independently all over again. They taught me how to walk again, even basic life skills for when my daughter was actually going to be here, like how to wash dishes, how to fold clothes. And I was learning all of this in the perspective of someone who is disabled, meaning like everything I learned, I had my walker right with me, or either I would be in a wheelchair and doing it from my wheelchair. And I could not really do anything without my walker. I probably used my walker like, I didn't stop using my walker until July of last year. So it took almost until my daughter was 2 for me to be off my walker. Some days I do still need it, but it's not a mandatory thing how it was before. But I ended up doing rehab, learning all my basic life skills over again, how to shower, how to brush my teeth, how to cook, wash clothes, clean, and also how to care for my daughter, basically while being disabled. They just had to teach me all of that stuff. So I got out of inpatient rehab and I had to go and live with my mom and her husband and my younger sister, which I will always be thankful for, because if it hadn't been for them, I don't know where I would have gone, to be quite honest. And I was so absent-minded at the time that I couldn't have made a wise decision for myself at the time. So I ended up going to live with my mom and her husband. And prior to me getting pregnant, I was not going to church. I would probably go to church like once a month. Because at one point I was going consistently. Me and my boyfriend at the time were. And eventually I just started seeing so much money and putting more focus on like making money and my well-being and making sure that bills are paid, just more focus on everything except for God. And it's one thing to put focus on all that stuff, because it's not, I don't think putting the focus on that was the issue. The issue was not having balance and not having God first in my life. I believe that's where I made my mistake in that area of my life. So I just was very much so in the world. I mean, like, started dabbling into different drugs, heavy alcohol, because like I would get to work and we would take like 2-3 shots, and I didn't realize that it was affecting me, because at that point it had become my new normal. So the lesbianism, the drugs, the alcohol, and on top of that, I had secretly gotten married to my high school boyfriend, and instead of taking care of that situation like an adult or like just a mature individual, I kept running from it, because I just should have gotten divorced when we broke up. So by the time my daughter came, I am now recovering from the events of my pregnancy. Still can't walk on my own, still using my walker. By the time she came, I was no longer living with my mom and her husband. I had moved back in with my boyfriend, and at the time, his mom was gracious enough to let us stay with her, because once again, like, we didn't have a place of our own at the time. We lost just about everything. So we moved in with his mom. I got induced. I didn't let my water break naturally because it was already enough going on. Ended up moving in with his mom. I went in on November 24th, and I think I had her November 25th, super early in the morning. Because I think I went to the hospital like at night, and then she came that following morning. She came out completely healthy, all of her body parts. I mean, just perfect. She was perfect when she came out. And it was just, I don't know, the labor itself was beautiful, because that was one consistent prayer I prayed in like the last 2-3 months of my pregnancy. I would always say, like, God, please don't let my labor take like hours. If it can happen quickly with like no complications or anything, please, God. I think I've been going through this long enough. So she came. It was perfect. It happened quickly in my eyes. Like, nothing took a long time with my labor. So get out of the hospital, and we have to go back to his mom's house, of course. And we stayed at his mom's house for almost the first whole year. We moved out like a couple weeks before baby girl's first birthday. And when I was pregnant, let me go back. When I was pregnant, my mom and her husband, they have a church, and they're pastors. One evening, they had a guest pastor come in, which was a prophet, I believe. And she ended up prophesying to me and basically telling me like God had taken me through all of that because he was pulling me out of hell. Meaning like my lifestyle had gotten so careless and just all over the place and reckless to the point where he literally had to just like take me out the game for a minute. And not saying like kill me or anything, but it was it was literally a near-death experience, because I remember a couple of times where they were saying, like, somebody would say, or I would hear somebody say, we can't find a pulse on her, which it wasn't that I was dead, it was just that my pulse was so faint to where they couldn't find it. But the prophet was saying that God was pulling me out of hell, and that what I was carrying was supposed to be something great for the kingdom of God. The night that I heard that, in my mind, it was like, all right, Brooke, all the games that we've been playing, like, it's over with, because it's not just about you anymore. Now there's another life involved. There's another soul attached to you. You have to do right now from here on out. Because one thing I can say, my parents, I believe they did the best to their ability. Like, if it were not for my parents, I don't think I would know God. I don't think I would have the relationship that I do have with Jesus. So I wanted that to also be for me and my daughter. So the lady told me all of that night at church. And then fast forward down the line, like, even after that night, I went home and me and my younger sister were talking, and it was just like, it makes sense, but God, did it have to be this bad? And now that I'm thinking about it, God knows how to handle each of his kids. So it's kind of like, it had to be that bad, because I probably just would have been like, oh, this ain't that bad, and gone right back to everything else that I had been doing before. So it probably had to be that bad. But we stayed with his mom almost until baby girl was 1. We moved out a little bit before her first birthday. And it was kind of like I was kind of I was backsliding all over again, because I remember smoking after she got here. I remember drinking after she got here, and not just like light drinking, like almost being drunk. I think I got drunk twice after she was born, but my pregnancy also left me with a lack of memory, and alcohol and a lack of memory, I don't care what anybody says, they will never mix. So that didn't go over well. And then also, I think I didn't completely drop watching pornography. Like, that still took some things to come out of. Well, some time to come out of. So we were in our own apartment, in our own place, and it was like I was coming into being a mom, and things were kind of becoming easier for me. Like, we had this routine going, but still, like, the underlying issue was I'm not living how I was raised to live. I'm not respecting God's word. I'm not respecting his standard for my life. I'm just not. I'm caring and I'm paying attention, but I'm not making the necessary adjustments to live a saved life. I just wasn't doing it. Going to church here and there, but still not doing what I should be doing. So my grandma calls me one night, and my grandma, I don't know if she'll call herself this, but I believe like God uses her sometimes, especially like just watching her in my life. At least God has used her a lot of times to get messages to me, because I believe he'll be trying to like show something to me or tell me something, and it's just like I'm moving, I'm not worried about it. She called me that night. I picked up the phone and she said, hey, do you have time to talk? And it was like the tone of her voice. So I left out of my bedroom and I went in my daughter's bedroom. Got on the floor, and me and her just started talking. And she was just saying to me how she knew I wasn't happy, and that she knew that I was trying to do all of this by myself. And she just asked me to come back to my hometown and to just stay with her for a little bit. Not literally live with her, but like come and visit. This was what she was saying at that time. So I hung up the phone with her after that conversation, and I went and told my daughter's father, like, okay, me and baby girl are going to go stay in Jacksonville for, some of the summertime. And then he was like, well, are y'all coming back? And I told him yes, because at that time I had plans to go back to what I thought was home. So I called my dad, asked him if he could take us. We left like the following weekend, and we ended up back in my hometown. While we were here, that's when I went to the service with the prophet, where she was telling me that God was basically pulling me out of hell, and take that back. That service happened while I was still pregnant. The service that we came to when I went to church with my grandma in my hometown was basically a prophet telling me that I had been crying and worried about how I was going to provide for my child. Because honestly, I did not want to still be in that relationship, because it was like it wasn't the healthiest situation to be in. Not that anything was abusive, because that was not the case at all. But for myself, I was not in a happy place to have even been in a relationship, period. So the lady was telling me that because of me leaving, my child would always be provided for. I would never have to want for anything, and whenever I did start to want, God would always provide. And that was something that I always worried about, because at this point I'm disabled, I do not work, and I don't really have the best memory. So it's like, how can I care for a child on my own? And then on top of that, how am I going to provide and I can't work? So I had started getting benefits, but it was like, it wasn't what I was used to when I was making money on my own. So after that church service, the lady was also telling me about how I was going to be reconnected with my husband by the end of the year. As soon as she said that, I was like, wait a minute, because that's not what I want. I don't want that guy. That's not what I was praying for. But you can't really you can tell God no, but it's probably not a wise decision. So I was just like, okay. In my mind, after we left that night, I was just like, well, God, I love you and thank you, because I've been praying for that. Like, I don't want to be alone. I would like to have some type of companion, somebody to call mine. That's just what I wanted. But I didn't want it to be my first husband. As bad as that sounds, it's just honest. I didn't want it to be my first husband, because I felt like I had damaged that situation so badly that it could never be something healthy. It could never be something that I could be in transparently and be happy with, or him be happy in it. I just didn't think that was possible. So that happened. I ended up leaving her dad. When I went back, I stayed in Jacksonville for maybe, it was the whole month of June. The entire month of June. Went back a little bit before the 4th of July. Went back to my hometown a little bit before the 4th of July, but that's backwards. We stayed in my hometown for almost the entire month of June, because I remember, was it August? It was somewhere between June, July, and August, or June or July. So we stayed in my hometown for that entire month. When it was time for us to go back, I asked my dad to drive me and baby girl back, but I told him that I was not going back to stay. I needed him to take me back so I can get my things, get baby girl's things, talk to her father about what I was feeling and the changes that I was about to make. And then I asked, could he bring us back? So he drove us back. When we got to my daughter's dad's house, pulled him in the room, and the house was full of people when we got back. But I pulled him in the room, and I was just like, listen, this is not what I want for my life anymore. I'm not taking your kid from you. You are still welcome to come and see her, have her whenever you so please. Like, I'm not cutting off you being a dad, but I no longer want to be in this situation. And of course it didn't go well, and he was telling me how he felt like that was going to happen, which I couldn't deny it, because even when I was still in my hometown, phone calls were getting shorter or not happening at all. Like, it was apparent that I was about to make a decision to leave or to stay. So that day, I packed up everything. I mean, like, toiletries, clothes, shoes, baby girl's, not toys, but all of her clothes, just about everything that I felt like I was going to need, even like paperwork and all of that stuff that was at the house. I took it, and anything that could be left, I left it. Like, I didn't worry about it. But left him that day, and I went to go stay with my sister just to give him time to be with baby girl, instead of just coming getting my stuff and heading back, because I know what it feels like to be a kid and not be able to have your dad, or not be able to see your dad. And even though she didn't understand what was going on, I saw what was going on, and I just didn't want that to be a replay of things that had happened to me. So stayed with my sister and her husband for, I think it was like a week. But stayed with them, and ended up coming back to Florida with them a little bit later than I was expecting to come back, just because we were about to go on vacation anyways all together. So I just prolonged my stay up there where my daughter's father was. But came back, and I've been really living saved ever since, and it's been the best decision that I could have ever made in my life. Because of how I saw church people act, because of how I saw Christians act and represent themselves, it's just not something that I was too like headstrong about doing. But life with God on any day of the week is better without God. I don't care what anybody says. And it's one thing if you don't know him, but if you just taste and see, I remember people saying that all the time, and I was like, that sounds crazy. But if you just taste and see who God is, what he feels like, what his presence feels like. I mean, just knowing that Jesus has you if nobody else has you, despite whatever mistakes you've made, despite anything and everything that you could and will ever do wrong. I mean, he's always there. It's just, it doesn't get any better than that. And ever since like fully giving my life to Christ, like I've had not any bit of depression, not any bit of even like laziness or stagnation or just holding on to bad habits, like anything negative and unlike God in my life. When I dropped it off, when I like literally dropped it and did not look back, it was just like, it was God like blowing on my life, like just breathing on my life in every situation in my life. Like I no longer felt dead in my own life, which is one of the worst feelings to feel. Feeling dead but being alive, it doesn't make sense. And of course it's an oxymoron said out loud, but if you really felt that, then you completely understand it. Now that I'm saved and really living for God, and I've corrected my wrongs and I've stopped living foul, because that's just what it was, life is so much better. So that's my testimony. Thank you guys for watching. If anybody has any questions about hyperemesis gravidarum, I'm happy to answer them. Any questions period about this video, I'm happy to answer them. And I just leave you all with this: if you have to make a decision to walk with him or not, always choose to walk with him, because it literally does not get any better than that. Bye guys.
I'm a work of art, a masterpiece.